best thing that men can do for women is hold a safe container of communication before, during, and after intercourse, and especially after, because that's where for women, oxytocin makes you feel that the goal is that connection, that intimacy. You want that. And for men, it makes them tired. So they want to roll over and go to sleep. Before you could do that, guys, that's the time to connect. What felt good, what didn't feel good. And also listening to her during orgasm, because there's sports sex and there's energetic sex. So like sometimes it's not about going faster and harder. It's about really slowing it down, almost to the point of imperceptible movement that can help a woman's climax grow. And so that's another piece. And for women, being able to express what feels good and have that safe space to do it.
Welcome to Old Guy Talks to Me, a podcast dedicated to helping guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. Ladies, if you want to know what your guy is thinking, this podcast is for women too. Each week, a special guest helps you create that life you've imagined. We talk anti-aging medicine, personal growth, relationships and hot sex. Yeah, you hear me, getting laid more frequently, other guy vices, and topics that many don't want to talk about but need to. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be old. Don't want to miss anything? Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review this podcast. And be sure to go to www.thestandard.academy/magazine and grab a free copy of our new digital magazine, The Standard Academy, where we talk about erogenous zones, growing hair back, and other things that will help you create that kick-ass life. Now get ready to listen up and share with friends.
This is Oris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com. Podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. That's right. There's those that they love. And speaking of love, we're going to be talking about something that, well, most guys like to talk about. And it's something called orgasms. That's right. Orgasms. Orgasms for women. And as my guest here, I think she's been on my program before, and we've had a very interesting discussion, especially when we talked about lubricants. And if you're buying your lubricant from a big box store, there's a good chance that's got lots of chemicals in there that really hurt vaginas and really hurt them bad. So check out that other episode and you'll find out more about that. But today I have as my guest again, Dr. Anna Cabeca. She's DO, OBGYN, FACOG, triple board certified, and a fellow of gynecology and obstetrics, integrative medicine, and anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And she has special certifications in functional medicine, sexual health, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. For the past 20 years, she served 10,000 plus women in her private practice and millions more through her books, online videos, and articles. When her own health took a troubling turn during menopause, she sought the wisdom of healers around the world. She learned that modern medicine and time-tested natural remedies are not at odds. And working together, they create indisputable results and true well-being. And using delicious healing foods and simple lifestyle changes, Dr. Anna reclaimed her health and life. And she's fueled by the belief that every woman deserves to be empowered and in control of their health and life. And she developed Keto Green Lifestyle, which has helped thousands of women out of menopause misery and experience a joyful transition to the next stage of their life. And so welcome, Anna. So that, I understood the DO and the OBGYN, but what's FACOG?
Fellow of the American College of OBGYNs.
Okay, all
One
right.
of our fellowship certifications.
Okay, all right, wonderful. So we started this. I want to make sure that I was calling the right person. So we're gonna get it right after. So you think you're a big proponent of a woman having an orgasm every day. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, Orest. It is an orgasm a day is better than an apple in keeping the doctor away. And the reason is because of oxytocin, the hormone of love and connection. And it is really, it's one of the most anti-aging hormones that there is in our body, if not the most.
Okay. And and explain the importance of oxytocin, because that sometimes people don't, we've all heard of it, but sometimes we hear things and don't remember actually what they do and why they're important.
Okay, so yes, oxytocin, not to be confused with oxycodone, which is a pain, right, a painkiller hormone.
That's
But
right.
yeah, a lot of bad press. But oxytocin is that hormone of longevity and love and creation, really. So, it's the hormone that is secreted in abundance during labor and delivery, with orgasm, with intimacy, with laughter, joy, things that bring us pleasure. We are secreting oxytocin. So, like for moms in pregnancy, when they're delivering a baby, and that the oxytocin is helping those contractions. Pharmacologically, we give the medication Pitocin, which is a bioidentical oxytocin.
Okay, so Pitocin is that's given during delivery to help with delivery, is actually a form of oxytocin, just a
Yeah.
manufacturer. Well, that's very interesting. Now, um,
And Oris, sometimes like people can tell if they have a deficiency in oxytocin, like a deficiency in oxytocin can be caused by, for example, being on the spectrum. Asperger's or autistic individuals have low
mhm,
oxytocin. And then people who have experienced trauma, post-traumatic stress, can have low cortisol eventually and low oxytocin.
mhm,
And so that often, like a symptom is, and I'll relate this to a guy that was in my clinic, and he came to me, and he was, heard of my work in clients with post-traumatic stress. He goes, Dr. Anna, I know I should love my wife. I just don't feel love for her. And I know I have these kids and I have these kids and they're amazing. And yet I don't feel connected to them. And I said, well, tell me what happened. When did this start? And started around 2 years ago and 2.5 years ago. So within a 6-month span, he'd worked on a train, and there was a major derailing of the train. He was thrown from the train, and
sure.
very traumatic PTSD, traumatic brain injury. And so from that time, like, he recovered really, really well physically. It was this emotional part. So I run an oxytocin quiz. And so it's a list of questions that's on my website at dranna.com. But the questions are like this: are your hands cold and clammy? Do you, like, on a level of, 1 to 10, what level of joy do you experience on a daily basis? Do how connected do you feel? Like social isolation, if you're more socially isolated, that's a sign of oxytocin deficiency. And pale skin, that's another sign. And so in working, and then I would do an injection of essentially 10 IUs of Pitocin or oxytocin mixed with some lidocaine, because it burns. You never want to give that straight, and inject that into the muscle of an individual. And I would look for signs: pinking of the ears, reddening of the chest, just like a post-orgasm flush. And this gentleman all of a sudden just started smiling, and he just felt so much better. So that's a positive sign that he is oxytocin deficient. And so then I can work on oxytocin increasing behaviors, stress reduction, because cortisol, you have to manage cortisol to manage oxytocin.
Mhm.
And then, a temporary supplementation with oxytocin.
Okay, so the oxytocin is not something that you would take for the rest of your life. It's just just to get you past a certain point.
Yeah, we shouldn't need to. And especially if we are able just to kickstart, to give us a pause,
Mhm,
because if we do take it every day, we're going to decrease our body's own natural production,
mhm,
versus this is a crutch, like on your way home from work, before you walk in the door with the family, to kind of release some stress, to
mhm.
feel more at home in your body, and to feel more welcoming and affectionate. You can take some oxytocin. And but you only want to do that short term, because you don't want to inhibit your body's natural production
No, okay.
of oxytocin.
Wow, actually, I mean, I knew it was important for women, but I never realized it was important for men also. So that's very interesting. So orgasms. What what kinds of different kind of orgasms are there?
Well, I think there's more kinds than I even know about, but typically we think from a female orgasm, we think clitoral orgasm, vaginal orgasm, pelvic orgasm, including the uterus, and you can have a whole body orgasm. So there can be throat gasms, so orgasms from the throat. So those are the main ones. And I think most women will experience, so according to literature, 25% of women don't experience an orgasm during intercourse. And so, and the most common orgasm that's experienced is the clitoral orgasm. So that's really fascinating to me. And so using, really paying attention to clitoral stimulation during intercourse is also very important.
Yeah. Why do you think so many women don't experience orgasm? That's 25% is a pretty high number.
That during intercourse, yeah, and 10 to 15% would say they never experience. And I like to differentiate. Really, we're talking about climax, that climax. And I think there's a few, I mean, there can be many reasons. Actually, I have a whole course called Sexual CPR, how to reclaim your sex drive and your orgasm. But so there's many aspects. There's psychologic, it can be medicines, like antihistamines, that can interfere with your orgasm. Who knew? And so many people are on oral antihistamines. And so antacid, H2 blockers can interfere with your body's ability to have orgasm. Diabetes for men and women can interfere with sexual function. So those are some things, but also the part about, and then there's physical, if there's been trauma, post childbirth or sexual trauma, certainly, and history of childhood or sexual trauma also can create a block to fully experiencing sensations as well as expressing. I think women, like the best thing that men can do for women is hold a safe container of communication before, during, and after intercourse, and especially after, because that's where for women, oxytocin makes you feel that the goal is that connection, that intimacy. You want that. And for men, it makes them tired. So they want to roll over and go to sleep. Before you could do that, guys, that's the time to connect. What felt good, what didn't feel good. And also listening to her during orgasm, because there's sports sex and there's energetic sex. So like sometimes it's not about going faster and harder. It's about really slowing it down. Almost to the point of imperceptible movement that can help a woman's climax grow. And so that's another piece. And for women, being able to express what feels good and have that safe space to do it.
Yeah, I think so we talked about clitoral and you talked about vaginal. What's the difference, and how's that stimulation different?
So clitoral you can experience a clitoral orgasm without ever having vaginal penetration. So that's completely, from either light touch, intense touch to the clitoris stimulation. So that's very common. And then vaginal can be from the G spot, for instance. And they always say the G spot, put 2 fingers in the vagina, go up towards the pubic, so up to the second floor, to the back door, and then to the front window. So you think about 2 fingers in, go up, in, and push up, and that will stimulate the G spot area for a woman, which is in the area just south of the bladder. If you're up too high, you're going to put pressure on the bladder, and that can cause leaking and pressure and be uncomfortable. So really kind of identifying where that is for a woman and being able to stimulate that, and can stimulate that during intercourse as well. And then, stimulation of the cervix can be enjoyable for some and painful for others. And when you have that like intense pelvic orgasm because pitocin, oxytocin stimulates uterine contractions in labor, you can feel those uterine contractions in your uterus. And I would say that one client that I had, I'm remembering right now, in her early 40s, married 15 years, had 2 children. And she said, Dr. Ann, I've never experienced an orgasm when we've had sex. And so I did evaluate physical anatomy. Everything's good. We decided to go ahead with a enhancement of the G spot with a hyaluronan. There's different things, G shots, O shots, different terms now, but just to enhance that as a focus. And so I showed her and her husband where that was on her. And so that gave them sensate focus. And I remember it was 3 a.m. one morning. And I get this phone call, and it's Lydia, and she's like, Dr. Anna, like my uterus, I'm cramping so bad. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, well, we had sex and it felt like I had a climax, but now my uterus is cramping. I'm like, that's a pelvic orgasm. Good job.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to go back to sleep. Good night. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah. That's,
beautiful to see that,
mhm.
to see, and again, that safe container of communication to open yourself up to be able to express what works as a couple.
Mhm.
Do you need accountability? Are you looking to change the course of your life but have failed to keep on track? Too often we take in information and fail to act. Do you need an accountability program to stay the course? Then go to www.thestandard.academy and find out about my accountability program that goes with my course that helps you find out what you want, why you want it, and how to get it. The accountability program keeps you on track to get results.
Well, I think that communication is really important in that regard.
Yeah.
That's where I think a lot of things break down between couples. There's a tendency to believe that you should know. So yeah, I think one of the things is that I think a lot of times there's this perception that people should just know automatically, and they don't. You need to be told. Some people like certain things and other people don't like those things, and there's a matter of exploration. And also I think of a big part that a lot of times is that guys don't spend enough time in foreplay.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece to remember. And I think there's a good book that was called She Comes First.
Uh-huh.
And that's a good policy. But also, again, especially older women it takes more time to lubricate and
Sure.
for the vagina to relax and for your natural moistures. And then, seriously, I mean, I created a product called Julva, which is anti-aging for the vulva, which I think is an important asset to any vanity and bedside table for any woman over 50 and a man, and the man who loves her. So just to have that additional, that regenerative therapy, that lotion that really works to help your body produce natural moisture, works different than a moisturizer. So I mean, it's been cutting edge and really, really well received. And so I think that's important too, to like the lubrication piece, the relaxation, to allow time for engorgement, to exactly experiment what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and giving, I think for, keeping the conversation open and creating the space, giving her permission to, and don't take it critically, to say, oh, I like it when you do this or move here. And most guys will not take it critically. So I think it's important that too, for the women, the way it's delivered. If a woman doesn't like nipple stim, but she thinks that's something that you're into, she's going to allow it potentially. And it's a turnoff for her. So you need to know, does this turn you on? Does this turn you off? Does this feel good? I mean, it's like, again, having that honest discussion. I'm here to make you feel good. I'm here to turn you on. And I think that's the one big secret. I talk about this in my sexual CPR program. That's the one big secret I will say women need to know about men. And that is that his turn on is your turn on. So your turn on is the number one thing that turns him on.
Oh,
so yeah. So I think that's a big piece, that women need to hear that and receive that. And the big piece for men is that, oxytocin makes her want to connect, intimacy, share positive, feedback. Is that time for verbal love notes or intimate, just caressing, just to that time after intercourse. That's just by design. And so I would say that's true for 99% of women.
Yeah, I think that whole attention to, it's not just the penis and the vagina. There's a lot more to it that's important, that makes it very pleasurable, makes it very intimate, and you want to create that. And I talk about this in my coaching program: spiritual, emotional, and physical intimacy. And I think a lot of times guys and maybe even some women to a certain extent don't understand the need for that, because guys too often say, I want more sex. We need to have more sex. And that's not real. They're not really thinking about just having the penis and vagina. I think they're thinking about more of the relationship too that they want. But it's kind of interesting. Let's talk a little bit about also because of orgasms. Let's talk a little bit about painful sex and why what can be done, because a lot of times women will, I think, probably not even talk about it, but will avoid sex because it's painful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, you have to figure out why, why is there pain? So a gynecologic exam, a pelvic and vaginal ultrasound is always part of my workup. And then where's the pain coming from? Is it from the bladder? Is it from the rectal area? Is it from the uterus? Is it from the vagina? Is it from the mouth of the vagina or the vulvar area? Is it pain on penetration, or is it pain on deep penetration? So so I think it's important to look at those things. And for most women, as we get older, it's from the vaginal dryness and the decrease in elasticity of the vaginal walls. And so that's where something like my product Julva really comes in and helps. And so to help rejuvenate that tissue, because, estrogen alone only works on the mucosal layer. And we certainly, as women, we don't want to give our guy more estrogen. So we want a product that's estrogen free. And that's important to think about too, as couples. So looking at what's causing the pain, and addressing those issues, getting help and treatment of those issues. And then the other thing is post-coital pain. So after intercourse, if there's discomfort, vaginal irritation, all of those things can really create a decrease in desire to have sex, right? If you have urinary tract infections, if you have vaginal discharge or odor, the fishy odor that can come from having sperm in the vagina, because it's creating a more alkaline environment, which allows more bacteria to grow. So you want to avoid ejaculating in the vagina. That's a big one. And making sure you're using enough lubricant. Julva, or can make your own, like with coconut oil and aloe vera gel. I love aloe vera because, you can get microabrasions sometimes during sex. And so you want to heal that tissue, and aloe vera does a good job with that too. And then just making sure you're really taking care of the care of your partner in that. So, so I think those are some of the reasons that you can have painful sex. And there are different things that can be tried, like different positions, and always getting to the underlying reason. Why is there?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's an important part, because I think a lot of guys don't understand that's an issue especially as women get older. That becomes more and more of an issue in regards. So we've covered orgasm a day. We've covered different types of orgasms and things like that. Any other things that you think men should know about women and their orgasms that are important?
Well, I think that also use your intuition, because a woman may hold back. And so, again, being that safe space, that able to really like know when to slow down or stop versus go faster, and what other areas. I mean, women have erogenous zones all over their body. So playing with that too, like taking a break and doing not having penis and vagina sex and non-coital sex, and explore each other's erogenous zones and have fun doing that. I also think creating the time, and space to have play is really important. So setting dates, helping out, alleviating some of the many things on the to-do list.
Sure.
Those are key to a woman's orgasm. Let me tell you, she is multitasking in her head. And so really focusing on sensate focus and then, experiment with, what things turn you on. I will say this to guys too. Like sometimes guys have, want to try something, say, for example, maybe let's say spanking or some fun play bondage in a safe, very safe relationship. So you want to play with something like this, but you're afraid to bring this up because you don't know how it's going to be received. And I would say really open space for her to communicate to you too. For your partner to communicate, well, what is it? These are some things I was thinking about. What do you think about that? That is better to communicate and have fun with than in a very light, playful manner than it is to not talk about it at all.
Yeah. I think the whole thing is that the other thing is that the whole process of sensuality it starts way before the penis enters the vagina.
I always say foreplay starts with bring me coffee in the morning.
yeah, or something. And I think a lot of times, especially when people get so busy and they get kids and they get all this stuff going on, and they forget to have fun.
Yeah. And I think this is also with older, as there are issues with older women with vaginal dryness, men with erectile issues, that getting creative with play is really important. And to talk about it too, to talk about, look, I recognize that I'm having these issues. I think there's always help for that. I mean, there is always help. I mean, I have definitely men in their 80s with good erectile function and women in their 80s with good vaginal health. And so, but it's more than that. It's so much more than penis in the vagina. Where can we get stimulation? Where do we feel the erogenous zone? I mean, you can be with someone for decades and still not know all the nuances. And I think that's really an important piece, like, as you've said. So I think I always say there's the ABCs to sexual CPR. And just like for CPR was airway, breathing, circulation, right? So for sexual CPR, we've got ABCs too. But A is for accept where you are right now, the state you're in, whether you have erectile dysfunction, vaginal dryness, what's going on. Accept where you are right now, acknowledge it, bring it, when it's out in the surface, it can't hold you back. So, I accept where you are right now. Maybe you've got 10 extra pounds or 100 extra pounds, accept where you are right now. Be present. Women can multitask in their head during sex, I guarantee it. And so you want to be present. You want to bring in that, sensate focus. And sometimes some, different play techniques can really help you get there. So be present and see, and especially if you're focusing, how does this touch feel? Is this lighter, firmer? Just really depends on the interaction between the two. And the third is communication. And that's probably the founding principle to having good orgasms. And no, you're not broken if you're not experiencing it, if you don't have one, but we get curious, let's see what could bring it out differently, what needs to happen now, and just keep playing with it and understand the entire experience, whether there's a climax or not, is enjoyable. And that's what you want. Was fun, was enjoyable, was playful. That's the best of it.
Yeah. This is as much the psychological and the emotional as much as the physical of it. That's part of it. Okay. Well, Anna, I want to thank you. That was an interesting discussion about orgasms, and I think it's always interesting on these kind of things that people don't really share posts on these.
Yeah, well, for our audience and who's listening, so I want to hear your comments, email us privately or message us at team@drAnnaCabeca.com. I want to hear what your comments are, because this is an area that is so beautiful in our life, right? It's so beautiful. So what are you dealing with? What's holding you back? Where are you finding resistance? Where, what would you like to see, improve? What have you found that works amazingly for you that maybe, we all need to hear about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you for coming on the program. And I'm sure we'll have you back and talk about some other interesting things. And if you have not already, be sure to go to the standard.academy/magazine, get my digital magazine. And one of the articles actually is One Secret Place to Touch a Woman. That's one of the articles in the magazine. And I want you to do several things. I want you to share, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you want to give me a bad review, that's fine too. I'll take any kind of review. So in the meantime, until we meet again, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love.
Thank you for joining Dr. Orist and his incredible guest. Like what you heard and learned? Then be sure to do 3 things. 1. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. 2. Share this with someone who may need to hear it. 3. Leave a review and rate this podcast. Opt in at www.thestandard.academy/magazine and get our free digital magazine with savings, articles, and deeper dives into cool controversy. Be the guy who takes action. Without action, you're not going to get the results you want. Thank you again, and make it a great day.